Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, some mysteries just, they never seem to go away.
That's true.
And the disappearance of Mike from Mike's Waffen Facts is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
It's like we keep getting these little breadcrumbs, these hints and clues, and it just keeps the whole thing alive.
Yeah. It's certainly a case that keeps on giving, isn't it? Even after that last episode, with the big argument about Soldatenstaffel, we had the old Dozer Crew track with Mike in it, then the strange fan video, and then of course Wanderer and Seeger. It just seems like every time we think we're getting close to the bottom of it, something else pops up.
And then on top of all that, we have two more Dozer Crew tracks that have surfaced, Cowabunga and Schwipps, both featuring this mysterious Meckel.
Right.
I mean, are these new clues to Mike's whereabouts?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, we've got to analyze these new songs carefully and see if they connect in any way to the previous clues and try to understand what they might reveal about Mike's state of mind or his current situation.
Okay, so where do we even begin with this? I mean, let's start with Cowabunga. I mean, even the title itself is a little perplexing, isn't it? It's just such a, playful, almost childlike exclamation.
Yeah, it's certainly a stark contrast to the more kind of introspective Wanderer and the almost aggressive Seeger. I mean, it makes you wonder if Mike, assuming he is Mikkel, is intentionally trying to throw us off the scent.
Maybe he wants us to think he's just carefree and unbothered, when in reality he's still in danger or struggling with something.
It's possible.
Almost like a defense mechanism.
Yeah, I think that's a plausible theory. People often use humor to cope with difficult situations.
Right, and let's not forget Mike's signature dark humor. I mean, maybe this seemingly lighthearted, title is actually a cover for something much darker.
Well, let's not jump to conclusions just yet. I mean, we need to listen to the song, analyze the lyrics and see if there are any hidden meanings or subtle clues that might point us in a particular direction.
Okay, fair enough. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but before we actually dive into Cowabunga, I think it's worth revisiting why someone like Mike, someone with his personality, might be drawn to conspiracy theories in the first place.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I think for a lot of people, conspiracy theories provide a sense of order in a world that can often feel chaotic and unpredictable. They offer simple explanations for complex events, and they can make people feel like they have this kind of insider knowledge, like they're in the know.
Right. And for someone like Mike, who was always, questioning authority, challenging the status quo, conspiracy theories might have been particularly appealing.
Absolutely. They provided him with a framework for understanding the world, a way of making sense of things that seemed confusing or unfair.
Right. But the danger, of course, is that, conspiracy theories can lead people down this rabbit hole of misinformation and paranoia.
Oh, absolutely. And in extreme cases, they can even lead to violence or other harmful actions. So we have to be mindful of that.
All right, so as we analyze these new songs, let's keep in mind that, Mike's beliefs, however outlandish they might seem to us, were probably very real to him, and they might have had serious consequences for his life.
Absolutely. We need to approach this with sensitivity and understanding while also being mindful of the potential dangers of, unchecked conspiracy theories.
Okay, so with that in mind, let's put on our detective hats and dive into Cowabunga. I'm really curious to see what clues we can uncover.
I'm ready when you are. Let's see what Minkal has to say.
Yeah. So having listened to Cowabunga a few times now, the thing that really strikes me is the overall tone. It's almost like a parody of a beach party anthem.
It is, right? It's got that real cheesy, upbeat vibe,
Yeah.
lots of like surf rock guitar and kind of nonsensical lyrics.
Exactly. It's so over the top that it makes you wonder if Mikkel is intentionally trying to create a caricature of himself, or maybe even of Mike.
That's a really interesting thought, because remember how Mike used to call his apartment the Schwatten bunker? This song feels like the complete opposite of that image. Doesn't it? It's like he's gone from, bunker mentality to beach bum in the blink of an eye.
But maybe that's the point. Maybe he's trying to project this image of carefree abandon, while underneath it all, he's still grappling with the same anxieties and fears that he always had.
Yeah, that actually reminds me of something we were discussing earlier about, the psychology of someone who's drawn to conspiracy theories. They often crave that sense of control and order, especially when they feel like the world around them is chaotic and unpredictable.
You're right. And for Mike, disappearing, going off the grid might have been a way of exerting control over his own narrative,
Yeah, creating his own world, so to speak, where he can set the rules and dictate the terms of engagement.
So even though Cowabunga sounds lighthearted and carefree on the surface, it could actually be a reflection of Mike's deeper psychological state. He's putting on a brave face, trying to convince himself and maybe us that everything is okay.
It's like a mask he's wearing to hide his true feelings, and that makes the lyrics even more intriguing.
Okay, so let's dig into those lyrics a little bit and see if we can find any hints about what's really going on beneath the surface.
Yeah, there's a recurring line in the song that caught my attention. Right die wel keine Fesseln mehr. It translates to ride the wave, no more shackles.
Right, which definitely connects to that whole theme of freedom that we saw in Wanderer. It's like he's embracing the unknown, letting go of the constraints of his old life.
But there's also a hint of recklessness in that line. Riding a wave can be exhilarating, but it can also be dangerous. You're at the mercy of the elements, and
Yeah.
you never know where you'll end up.
Yeah, that's a great point. It makes you wonder if Mike, assuming he is a Mikkel, is making impulsive decisions, acting without thinking through the consequences.
Right, remember how he got into that heated argument with Rickard in that last episode of Mike's Waffen Facts? Maybe that impulsiveness, that tendency to dive headfirst into his theories has gotten him into trouble.
Oh, maybe he uncovered something that made him a target, and now he's on the run trying to stay one step ahead of his pursuers.
That could explain the sudden shift in tone from Wanderer to Seeger and now to Cowabunga. He's trying to adapt to his new reality, finding ways to cope with the stress and uncertainty.
But there's still that nagging question, is Mikkel really Mike? Or is this all just an elaborate hoax?
It's a possibility we can't rule out. Remember, the internet is a breeding ground for misinformation and deception. Someone could be intentionally creating these songs to mislead us to capitalize on Mike's disappearance.
Okay, so let's play devil's advocate for a moment.
So,
Let's assume Mikkel is not Mike. Who else could it be, and what would their motive be?
well, it could be a fan of Mike's, someone who admires his work and wants to keep his legacy alive.
Possible. Or maybe it's someone who's trying to discredit him to make his theories seem even more outlandish and unbelievable.
Yeah, like a disinformation campaign designed to sow doubt and confusion.
And let's not forget the Doza crew themselves. Maybe they're using Mikkel as a marketing ploy, a way to generate buzz and attract new listeners.
That's a cynical view, but it's not entirely implausible. The music industry is known for its ruthless tactics.
So we've got a few possible scenarios here. Mick is Mike, and these songs are genuine reflections of his state of mind, or Mikkel is someone else, either a fan, a detractor, or someone connected to the Doza crew, and they're using these songs for their own purposes.
And until we have more evidence, we can't say for sure which scenario is the most likely.
Okay, before we move on to Schwipps, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about Mike's tendency to dive headfirst into his theories. That reminds me of his fascination with Solar Soldatenstaffel and those supposed particle cannons.
Yes, Solar Soldatenstaffel, Soldier Squadron. It does sound like something straight out of a science fiction novel.
It does. But remember, Mike had a deep knowledge of military history and technology. He wasn't just pulling these ideas out of thin air. He was weaving together bits and pieces of real information, connecting dots that most people wouldn't even see.
And that's what makes conspiracy theories so seductive. They often contain a kernel of truth, a nugget of real information that's been twisted and distorted to fit a particular narrative.
Exactly. So even though the idea of a solar soldier squadron might sound far-fetched, it's worth exploring the historical context and the technological possibilities that might have inspired Mike's theories.
Yeah, that's a great point. Let's take a closer look at Solar Soldatenstaffel. I mean, the term itself is a combination of German words that evoke images of power secrecy and advanced technology.
Solar obviously refers to the sun, which could suggest a connection to solar energy or perhaps even a space-based operation.
And Soldatenstaffel, which translates to soldier squadron, implies a highly trained military unit, likely an elite force with specialized skills and equipment.
So we've got this image of a clandestine group possibly operating in space, potentially harnessing solar energy for their weapons.
It sounds like something out of a James Bond movie.
It does, doesn't it? But remember, throughout history, governments have invested heavily in secret military projects, pushing the boundaries of technology and often operating outside the bounds of ethical considerations.
That's right. The Manhattan Project, which developed the atomic bomb, is a prime example. It was a top-secret program that involved thousands of scientists and engineers, and its existence was kept hidden from the public for years.
And even today, there are rumors of classified programs developing advanced weapon systems, including directed energy weapons and space-based platforms.
So while Mike's specific claims about solar Soldatenstaffel might have been exaggerated or even completely fabricated, the underlying concept of secret military projects developing advanced technologies is not as far-fetched as it might seem.
And that's what makes this mystery so compelling. It blurs the lines between fact and fiction, between reality and paranoia.
Exactly, and it makes us question our own assumptions about what's possible and what's not.
Okay, I'm eager to hear what Schwipps has in store for us. Do you think it will shed more light on this whole solar Soldatenstaffel concept?
I'm not sure, but I'm definitely intrigued. The title itself is interesting. Schwipps is a German slang term for being slightly drunk.
That's a curious choice of title. It's almost like he's mocking us. Like he's saying, you think you can figure me out? You're all Schwipps.
Maybe he's trying to tell us that we're not seeing things clearly, that we're letting our own biases and preconceptions cloud our judgment.
Or maybe he's just having a little fun with us, playing mind games, enjoying the attention.
Whatever his motive, Schwipps is sure to be a wild ride. Let's buckle up and see where it takes us. Well, Schwipps definitely takes us in a different direction. It's not what I was expecting.
Yeah, this one's it's a little harder to pin down, isn't it?
It is. The thing that really jumps out at me is the heavy use of wordplay and metaphor.
Yeah, it's definitely not as straightforward as Wanderer was.
Right. It's a far cry from the straightforward storytelling of Wanderer.
Yeah.
Or even the kind of raw, aggressive energy of Seeger.
Yeah.
The lyrics are dense and layered, with double meanings, almost like a riddle waiting to be solved.
Yeah, and there's all these references to illusions and deception. It just makes you wonder if Mikkel is intentionally trying to mislead us, you know?
It's funny you should say that because I was just thinking about that. Remember how we talked about the possibility of someone creating these songs to capitalize on Mike's disappearance?
Yeah.
Schwipps almost feels like a deliberate attempt to throw us off the scent, lead us down the wrong path.
Okay, so let's try to break down some of the key lyrics here and see if we can make any sense of this word puzzle.
All right. There's a line that repeats throughout the song. Die Welt ist ein Spiegelkabinett voller verzerrter Bilder, which translates to, the world is a hall of mirrors full of distorted images.
Wow, that's a powerful image.
It is, isn't it?
It really suggests that reality itself is subjective.
Yeah.
That what we perceive might not even be the truth.
And it connects back to Mike's whole fascination with conspiracy theories. His entire worldview was based on the idea that things are not what they seem. There's always something more going on beneath the surface.
Right. But it also raises the question, is Mikkel, the one who's distorting those images, is he the one creating the illusions?
It's possible he could be intentionally manipulating our perceptions, leading us down this rabbit hole of misinformation.
And that makes me think about the fan video we discussed earlier.
Right.
Remember how the creator claimed to have uncovered a hidden message in Wanderer?
Yeah, the one about the power outage in Berlin on December 18th, 2022.
Right. What if that was just a red herring? What if Mikkel planted that clue to distract us from the real truth?
I mean, it's possible we have to be very careful not to take anything at face value, especially when we're dealing with someone like Mikkel, who seems to be a master of deception.
Okay, so we've got this strong theme of illusions and deception running through Schwipps, but there's also another theme that emerges, duality.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. There are several lines in the song that suggest a split personality, a struggle between two opposing forces within Mikkel himself.
For example, there's a line that says, Ich tanze auf der Grenze zwischen Licht und Schatten, which means I dance on the border between light and shadow.
Yeah, that's a powerful metaphor. It suggests that Mikkel is torn between two worlds, two identities.
And it makes me think about the contrast between that, playful, carefree tone of Cowabunga, and then these darker, more introspective lyrics in Schwipps. It's like he's showing us two different sides of himself.
Or maybe he's showing us two different versions of Mike. The one who's trying to escape his past, and then the one who's still haunted by it.
Right, and that ties back to what we were saying about Mike's psychological state. Maybe he's struggling to reconcile his beliefs with reality.
Perhaps his disappearance was a way of breaking free from the constraints of his old life, but now he's realizing that, freedom comes at a price.
Right, and that price might be isolation paranoia, a loss of identity.
It's a tragic thought, but it's one we have to consider.
Okay, so we've explored these themes of illusions, deception, and duality in Schwipps, But what does it all mean? What's the takeaway here?
Honestly, I'm not sure if there is a clear takeaway. It's
Yeah.
like Mikkel is intentionally leaving us with more questions than answers.
Maybe that's the point. Maybe he wants us to keep searching, keep questioning, keep trying to figure him out.
Yeah. Or maybe he's just enjoying the chaos he's created, reveling in the fact that he's still controlling the narrative, even from the shadows.
So where does this leave us? I mean, we've analyzed the new songs, we've revisited the old clues, we've explored the psychological and historical context, and yet the mystery of Mike's disappearance remains unsolved.
Yeah, and I think what's so fascinating is that even after all of this analysis, all of this digging, we still don't know for sure if Mikkel is actually Mike or if these songs are, genuine expressions of his thoughts and feelings.
It's a reminder that sometimes the more we try to understand something, the more elusive it becomes.
Yeah, and perhaps that's the ultimate message of this deep dive, embracing the mystery, acknowledging that there are some things we may never fully understand.
Well, you've been listening to the deep dive. We've gone deep, explored the layers, and come out the other side with, well, more questions.
Yeah.
But that's part of the fun, isn't it?
Absolutely. Keep listening, keep thinking, and maybe, just maybe, you'll connect the dots in a way that we haven't until next time. Keep that curiosity alive.